So guys, welcome back to a brand new Reevesverse Batman video. And why the emphasis on that? Well, let's just say we're going to have another conversation in this video, which is starting to, I think, get really exhausting for people, but it has to be done. And to be honest, I know I'm being vague right now, it is interesting if I take the most level-headed approach to what we're going to talk about in this video. And if you still don't know what I'm on about, of course, it is about Pattinson being integrated into the DCU. Oh god. Stay tuned. It's another conversation worth listening to with an update that just happened with Matt Reeves in an interview. But first of all, before diving into that, and we will get into other DCU things in a future video, this one's fully Batman, I need to congratulate Colin Farrell for winning a Golden Globe for the Best Male Actor. Of course, it was expected, but you know what? I'm not trying to rain on the parade here, but we also had Cristin Milioti, who was nominated for a Golden Globe as well. But we had that Golden Globe go to Jodie Foster for True Detective Night Country. And look, I know I have a bit of bias here on the channel because I love the Penguin. Cristin Milioti was just incredible in that series. A complete, surprise for me. When I first started watching that in my early screeners, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait for people to see Sophia Falcone. And the thing is, again, it may seem biased because I'm like, well, she should have won, right? I wholly believe that. But I do like True Detective as well. Don't get me wrong, for me, I know a lot of people disagree with me here, but I think the latest season of True Detective completely pales in comparison to, True Detective Season 1, and was it Season 3? But I still enjoyed it for what it was, right? The latest season, Night Country. Jodie Foster was, good. I'm a fan of Jodie Foster's, but, for me, you have Cristin Milioti here in The Penguin, and you have Jodie Foster in True Detective Night Country, and she did a good job. But for me, if you have seen both shows, do you agree with me that the absolute standout was Cristin Milioti? How did she not win? I know there's other opportunities, of course, for Cristin Milioti to be awarded for her performance in The Penguin, but this one was an absolute, she should have got it. She really should have. But that's my little ramble out the way with regards to the Golden Globes for The Penguin. Huge congratulations to Colin Farrell. Hopefully that really swings him back into the makeup chair for Season 2, which we will also be talking about with new comments later on in this video. But now, ladies and gentlemen, and I will need you to like this video to give me the courage for, getting through this next segment and a little swig of what I've got going on here. And lo and behold, it is the Batman mug. So yes, we are diving into the exhaustive, repetitive conversation on, is Pattinson going to be integrated into the DCU, even though they have stated that he isn't before, but you never know kind of thing. Conversation. So huge shout out to Josh Horowitz here, who got a great interview with Matt Reeves, just talking quite frankly about this subject and a few others that we're going to dive into, even an update with Scarecrow, Julian Rush later on. So let's just dive into this. And I want to say right away, and I don't mean to fluff this out so much at the beginning, but if you're one of those people who's absolutely not right away and you've written it off already, just, go in with an open mind. And this is me saying this, a stern defender of what has been stated by James Gunn, the CEO of DC Studios, saying that they are separate. I want to just say, even though I don't think it will happen, I hope that it doesn't happen for all the reasons I've said before. Stranger thing, have you ever changed your mind? Oh, you have? Well, there's your answer. I'm not saying that has happened or will happen, but on this channel, I like to pride myself, as well as the community, you guys in the comment section, for having a civil conversation about it, a level-headed one. So Josh Horowitz asked about Pattinson being integrated into the DCU, and I have to admit, Matt Reeves wasn't as dismissive as I would have liked to have seen with regards to answers that he's given before, that James Gunn has given before. So Josh Horowitz first asked about how he had the opportunity to talk to Gunn. He mentioned that they talked about how Gunn is letting him doing his own Reevesverse on its own. And he says, I did ask him, have you contemplated recently integrating Rob into the DCU? And he said that they've talked about it because you talk about everything, Josh says. And Matt Reeves then says, sure, yeah. And this is when Josh Horowitz says, what's your attitude about that at this point? And this is when Matt Reeves says, and listen carefully, he says, I mean, you know, it really comes down to whether or not it makes sense. And, you know, what's been great is it was really kind of a story that I wanted to tell, you know? We're calling it the epic crime saga and all of that, which is the thrust of what we wanted to do. And it's been important to me to be able to play that out. And, you know, James and Peter have been really, really great about that, and they're letting us do that. And what the future brings, I can't really tell you. I have no idea right now, except that my head is down now about getting the Batman Part 2 shooting, rightfully so, and to make it something really, really special, which of course is the most important thing. I fully agree, but this is when Josh Horowitz says, and if they decide, like, we really want Rob to be our DCU Batman, Matt Reeves then continues to say, in reply to that, well, you know, I don't know, you know, we'll have to see where that goes. So, this answer certainly, I think, if you're being level-headed, certainly entertains the conversation once again. So no matter what, let's get this out the way as well. It has been stated by James Gunn that Reeves' Batman is separate and Elseworlds. Matt Reeves has said that himself as well. Here we have James Gunn back in 2023 saying it's not an allowed thing with regards to, like, we're letting Matt do it like that. He says it's Matt's choice, and we respect that. And you guys know I've got a bunch of other receipts, but you get the point there. We're all familiar with how this has been explicitly stated to be separate. Even in the Gods and Monsters YouTube announcement video for the DCU's initial slate, James Gunn said that Reeves' Batman is separate.
And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity.
So that, as it currently stands, is the truth, even with this interview. But despite those who say James Gunn has already debunked and flat out said no to this, and honestly, like, a massive part of me is like, I'm right there along with you. You guys should know this by now. As I keep saying, stranger things have happened in the world and things can change. So let's just level-headedly entertain the what if of it all here. So one thing right off the bat I would say is that in this interview, Matt Reeves did not flat out deny it like he has before, or like rather how James Gunn has said before. What he did do, and rightfully so, of course, is emphasize how the Batman 2 is the focus and that it's been important to him to be able to play that out with regards to, like, building out his original intentions and vision of the Batman trilogy. And in his own words, James and Peter have been really, really great about that, and they're letting us do that. And so there that is, similar to what we've heard before. But then Matt Reeves leaves some things a bit more nuanced, if you will, which Reeves has never really done before, which is what makes this conversation and why it's exploding on social media once again so interesting, in where he literally says, and what the future brings, I can't really tell you. I have no idea right now, except that my head is down now about getting the Batman Part 2 shooting, of course, with regards to that part, because that is the main focus. But then secondly here, with Josh Horowitz saying, you know, and if they decide, like, you know, we really want Rob to be our DCU Batman, Matt Reeves saying, well, you know, I don't know, you know, we'll have to see where that goes. So you guys know me. I'm all about upholding repeating what has been stated before, because I've done that a billion times before, but he could have just said an answer, are you ready for this? As James and Peter have said in the past, they're separate, but I'm excited to see what they do. Or, another version of that being, no, but I'm excited to see James's take. Boom. That could have been said, but he didn't say that. So, should we have alarm bells ringing for this actually being a thing that could come to fruition? That is the question, I suppose, and it's up to your own interpretation. Now, one thing that could also be read into is Matt Reeves saying, really comes down to whether or not it makes sense. He said that right at the beginning. He could be looking at that in terms of, does it even make sense? Can they make it make sense after further thought and retcons with a potential integration? Or just Matt Reeves through saying this could be saying, it doesn't make sense, so it really comes down to whether or not it makes sense, and that's his hint of saying, yeah, it doesn't really make sense, and, in my mind, it doesn't make sense either. I get how people can see how it can make sense, and they could do that with retcons and, as I like to describe it, like duct taping it all together. But that's what it will feel like to me. Taped together in a bit of a bodged way. Okay, Pattinson's Batman was around with Dr. Phosphorus, who was a mob boss at the time of Carmine Falcone. And it's just, my thoughts on this. It's just, the more you look into that, the more it just... But on the bottom line here, I can see, and look, let me know if you disagree or agree with me here, but I can see, level-headedly here, how with the quotes of Reeves saying, it really comes down to whether or not it makes sense. Number 2, I don't know, we'll have to see where that goes. And then number 3, lastly, and what the future brings, I can't really tell you. How that will read to tons and tons of people that he somewhat left the door open now with this kind of response, as opposed to initially Matt Reeves kind of outright saying and James Gunn outright saying it's not in his interest. But I think the one thing that has, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's rattled me and things like that, but the one thing that is living, I would say, slightly leaving the door ajar, a little bit rent-free in my mind, is that he could have just said, no, but I'm really excited to see what James, does one day kind of thing, but we're really excited, and, I've got my head down with regards to the Batman Part 2. But again, he said, we'll have to wait to see where that goes. On top of 2 other quotes, which were just as door-opening, if you ask me, compared to just saying, look, if you wanted to squash that in a live interview, what do you say? No, we're separate, as James Gunn and Peter Safran has said. Matt Reeves has actually said a quote like that before. Back when you go to that meeting they were going to have, now this is in 2023, Gunn and Safran have been great. We're actually supposed to meet in the next few weeks because they want to talk to me about the broad plan, and then they want to hear the Batverse plan. We're just getting together to talk about all of that. Look, I'm excited to hear what they're going to do. He could have said that here. The Batverse thing, as James has said, and as Peter has said, is kind of its own thing they're letting us do. I'm just saying now with these new comments and the vague answers, and I say vague because that is, we'll have to wait to see where that goes. Let me genuinely ask this to you, even if you're a stern defender like me of what Gunn has said before, is Matt Reeves saying, we'll have to wait to see where that goes, a no? No, it's actually not. And what the future brings, I can't really tell you. Is that a no? No, it's not. It's quite simply not. So all I'm arguing here is that ever since 2023, when we had way more of those firm denials from Gunn explicitly saying, yes, he said it, that they are separate, we haven't had that so much these days. And maybe in the past couple of years, especially maybe in the last 6 to 9 months, maybe some things could have subtly changed behind the scenes in where it doesn't mean that anything's being taken away from the Batman Part 2. As Matt said, that's his focus, that's his priority, to pave out his story for Part 2 and hopefully Part 3. That's if the box office for Part 2 is successful. We can't forget about that. Part 3 isn't guaranteed, of course. You still need to get money, right? But you could argue that even though that's the priority, that's the tunnel vision that Matt Reeves has got, hence his answers of who knows what the future holds, but I'm just focused on this. That, yes, beyond the scope of all of that, a conversation could have still happened where Matt Reeves' collaboration with James Gunn is going so well that maybe if given full creative control, as lots of people have talked about, and, full, vision over a possible integration with Pattinson after part 2 or after the trilogy, that he might be a bit more open to that, which is why he wasn't outright dismissive is what has been said in the past, where they've said, no, they are separate. Here, this time, he's like, and what the future brings, I can't really tell you. And it's like, we'll have to wait to see where that goes. Why didn't he just say no, but I'm excited to see what they're going to do? Like he did back in January or early, rather, 2023. There is a distinctive difference there. Now, maybe I am looking too much into this. You know me, I want it separate. But I'm just here presenting everything on the table. Now, the other option, as I got into, though, is that even with all that being said and done, the idea of him just entertaining the interviewer, trying to drive the conversation back to his focus on the Batman Part 2, these answers could be taken not so seriously because he could have just been being polite and, kept saying timidly, because in that interview, I don't know Matt Reeves, so I couldn't tell if he was really nervous or whatnot, but he was put on the spot and he could have just been answering it like, oh yeah, the Batman 2 this, the Batman 2 that, oh yeah, I don't know where the future goes, we have to wait to see where that goes. Those can just be throwaway comments that you don't really think of too much before you even say them when you're on the spot. And I don't know if Matt Reeves was really thinking at that moment in time that, what I just said does technically leave some nuance that everyone is going to read into right now, when really, no, it is still separate. But what I've just said is going to open the floodgates again. Do you know what I mean? It could be seen that way, when really it is actually still separate. This is why this will never end until the DCU Batman is fully cast, despite Gunn saying in the past that they are separate. So, I don't know, but that is the end of my bloody ramble, and hopefully the last time I'm going to ramble this much about this. Do you guys think that Matt Reeves was just politely entertaining the interviewer's question, but it still doesn't really change what's been stated by James Gunn and how the Reeves Batman is Elseworlds? Or do you think that given that Matt Reeves said things like, I don't know, we'll have to wait to see where that goes, as being more of an indicator of, okay, I'm doing my thing with part 2, but I'm potentially open to branching out my Batman once I've put my own stamp down with the original story that I wanted to tell, especially with The Brave and the Bold being somewhat on the back burner, so to speak, with regards to it being several years away, as Andy Muschietti also recently reaffirmed. Oh, and one more thing as well, for those of you who mentioned the DCU Batman silhouette and Creature Commandos not being Pattinson, just to play devil's advocate here, I totally get where you're coming from, but that is just an animated silhouette. Build or no build of that character being a lot more, thick, if you will, than Pattinson, that doesn't matter. Again, if, let's hypothetically say, I can see the future right now, and they did make Pattinson the DCU Batman, that Creature Commando silhouette being bigger than it doesn't matter. It doesn't, he's a silhouette for a reason. Yes, he's built more than Pattinson, but no matter what, I don't agree with using it as evidence as to why it's not Pattinson, because animation translated into live action, to it being a bloody silhouette, to whatever, it just doesn't dictate the future casting. Whether the DCU Batman's separate or not, the future DCU Batman who's cast might not be as thick as that animation. What are you going to do then? Compare it to the inconsistencies of the silhouette thickness? Look, either way, don't use that as evidence. I wouldn't recommend it. But either way, let me know your thoughts. But let's move on. Can you believe it? We've got more to go over in this video. So as for the main villain, we had Josh Horowitz ask, how tough has it been to figure out your main villain? There's been a lot of rumors lately, even heard Freeze as a potential villain. And Reeves said, and quite coyly here, I can't answer anything, giggling a little bit. And Josh Horowitz then asked, by now you've determined who the bad guy is? And Reeves then says, yes, of course, or we'd really be in trouble. Absolutely. Of course they know who the main villain is, despite the script still needing to be finished. And that's when Josh then asked, is it going to be surprising to the audience? Matt Reeves then said, I hope so, yeah. I think so. I think that the story is a continuation in a certain way and completely different in another. And is going to show a different side to Rob. I think it's going to be really exciting. It's going to be really cool. Now, you guys know my thoughts about that. Matt Reeves kind of, I wouldn't say like gave it away, but he spoke about this different side to Robert Pattinson we'll be seeing in part 2, these developments. I think that's blatantly bringing out Bruce Wayne more compared to that of the first movie, where he was like a workaholic Batman, but now there's a bit more of a balance with Batman where he'll utilize his Bruce Wayne side. But as for the villain, no major clues there, of course, other than he's really excited about it. But of course he would say that about anyone, whether it's Hush, the Court of Owls, Mr. Freeze, a different take on Mr. Freeze that unwinds the fantastical a little bit more. That would be a big thing as well with this whole DCU business is, you know, if Matt Reeves does go for one of the villains who is traditionally more fantastical in the comics and decides to unwind it a lot more in part 2, so no Sub-Zero Freeze, but he's still doing Freeze. You know, in the DCU, Mr. Freeze would just be Mr. Freeze. Either way, I'm trying to get away from that conversation. But as for the release date change for the Batman Part 2, this was interesting as well because Matt Reeves basically acknowledges what I've been talking about and other insiders out there with how there has been a reason for why the script has taken a bit longer than what it should have done. Now, Matt Reeves has said that himself, so we had Josh Horowitz saying, "Are you happy with the progress you're making and the release date you have now?" And Matt Reeves said, "Yes, absolutely. I mean, this year we're going to be shooting and I'm excited about it. And, you know, there's been a lot of stuff going on and, you know, it's taken longer than I would have wanted. But also I'm super excited about what we're doing. So I really can't wait to share that with everybody." And with Deadline, Matt Reeves said this about Colin Farrell: "He is also such a wonderful person. You know, there's been a lot of stuff going on sort of in my life in the last year, and he has been such a good friend, such a beautiful man." Now, again, reading between the lines there and what a lot of other people have been saying and what I briefly kind of described in my previous videos, that is relating to that. So hopefully now people will really start to believe that, yes, Reeves is a slow writer, but there has been, like, legit, like, behind-the-scenes reasons as to why, you know, it's that much longer and why they've slated 2027, even though I am slightly hopeful that they move it up to, like, March 2027, because the production timeline still doesn't truly add up to me, as I've mentioned before, in how when they start shooting later this year, they should still be able to meet the release date of early 2027. Why October? We don't really truly know, but with The Hollywood Reporter, Reeves said a similar thing. You know, there's been so many things going on. This next year is very much about getting into production and getting the movie going, and we're very excited about it. So again here, you know, definitely a late summer filming date. But what's really cool about that, and I've had this feeling so many times now, and you probably got deja vu hearing me say this, but going into the months ahead, as the script gets finished and as they start filming or gearing up to film around July, September, we will be hearing who this new villain is, or insiders from the major trades will be reporting. Just like, again, I'm going to say it for the umpteenth time, remember when Jonah Hill was rumored to be in talks for both Riddler and the Penguin? Stuff like that should really be happening as we enter, like, spring or so, maybe a bit later than that, but you never know. Like, you never know when the scoops will start coming out. But, like, when, you know, because you'd have to think there is going to be no more delays, because we can't have another delay beyond October 2027. So this time, it's going to be it. So in the months ahead, this time, we will finally be learning more about the actual story of Part 2. Now, as for the Penguin Season 2, Josh Horowitz asks, how many discussions, are there real discussions about Season 2 right now? Matt Reeves this time really doubles down. Now, this is stuff we kind of already know, but they're, like, way more confident about it now. So he says, sure, Lauren, Dylan, and Colin and I are talking about doing another season, and it's all about, you know, obviously we're doing the Batman 2, and to get the timing right on that, but our plan is, and our hope is absolutely to do another season. We just have to come up with the idea that we think is the right idea, which is what we're working on. And that's to be expected. I mean, The Penguin was a limited series. It very clearly bridged Oswald's journey and the gap of time between The Batman and The Batman Part 2. He's very blatantly seeding himself in the political system of Gotham with how he wanted to be welcome in City Hall and meet maybe some of Councilman Hades' friends, such as Bella Real. So I'm not saying we're going to get the Mayor Cobb storyline or anything like that, but maybe his ambitions to be not only the kingpin of Gotham, but actually have some political sway with all of these other people, who are actually in charge of the city at City Hall. That's insane, right? So they already had a direction of how this blends into Oz's direction in The Batman 2. I think Batman will have knowledge of this and have tabs on that, and that will be, furthering his, we'll get an update on that situation between Oz and Batman, and see where Oz is at in The Batman Part 2. Maybe he's a bit further embedded, who knows? But now, the idea that they're trying to explore is, okay, after Part 2, and we know where Part 2 ends. I mean, I know he hasn't finished the script, but Matt Reeves knows where the story ends. And obviously, Oz isn't going to die. Colin Farrell's already said that he's got signed on for 3 movies. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee 3 movies gets made, but in the contract, he would have to appear for the 3rd movie if the box office for number 2 does well. But now they're going to have to figure out, okay, we know where Oz roughly is at the end of Part 2. So how do we make that fit with now entering a new season with what, so Matt Reeves has got quite a bit of thinking to do ahead with all of the vision that he has had for years. But you still need to, Matt Reeves still needs to get all of his ducks in a row with regards to how best to execute that and really feel out the story. Maybe it even, I'm not saying it changed things, but it might have informed where Penguin ends up at the end of Part 2. Not that I'm saying he's a major character, but now that they're definitely exploring a Penguin Season 2, they might decide to deliberately highlight a scene towards the end of the movie, similar to how you had Penguin staring outside of Falcone's window at the end of the first movie. That kind of thing. Maybe there's a few things that have informed this, and yeah, they're trying to make it work. Matt Reeves is a very, 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 very busy man with all of this stuff. But what also intrigued me is when Josh Horowitz said, thoughts on other spin-off series at this point for Zoe, other characters. Matt Reeves said, I would love to do more, but I think right now the thing that we're really focused on, obviously, we're talking about doing the 2nd season of The Penguin, but my big priority is to get the Batman 2 shooting and going, and then it'd be exciting to see where we'd go from there. So the reason why I say that's a bit of a different answer, and by the way, I don't disagree with Matt Reeves at all. That is the priority. They're having conversations. They've had conversations. This has been reported for weeks now, over a month, that they've been talking about it. I'm now wondering, with just the way he answered that, is the focus just going to be on the Penguin Season 2 as per what was originally teased by Matt Reeves, that they were exploring the idea of maybe different series outside the Penguin? There was rumors of that maybe legal procedural series with what many people were speculating about with Harvey Dent. Now, there's no weight to that, by the way, other than Matt Reeves saying at the time, I'm paraphrasing here, you may be going along the ways we've been thinking. He said something like that. But my only point is, with how busy he is with trying to get Part 2 off the ground, originally Penguin Season 1 was just meant to be a limited series, but now, oh shit, it did so well, we could do a Season 2. Are they kind of maybe, potentially for now, going to put the idea of other series, let's just say hypothetically a legal procedural Harvey Dent kind of series in Gotham, on the wayside while they just, get everything else off the ground? Because previously he was happy to talk about how they do have other series that they're thinking of doing. Now it's changed to, obviously we're talking about Penguin Season 2, but mainly the Batman 2. It's less about the idea of other things, although he did say, of course, after the Batman 2, it'll be exciting to see where we'd go from there. But I still think that pertains to the Penguin Season 2. Now, lastly, for this video, guys, we have an update on Dr. Julian Rush, played by Theo Rossi. Screen Rant asked Lauren LaFranc about the idea and theory with regards to Julian Rush being the Scarecrow, and she denied it. And the quote is, well, I can say he's not the Scarecrow. So, what are my thoughts on this, given everything I've said about it? So, long story short, you guys know that I heard a long time ago when the show was in the very early days of production, that on the sheet of paper, it literally said that Theo Rossi was Jonathan Crane. But then that name changed to Julian Rush. Me and my source were confused about it. We're like, okay, maybe they changed the direction for that character. Maybe they were going to do Crane, but now they're not. So I kind of just left it there. I mentioned it in a video a long time ago. Time passed, and, you know, I was still intrigued to see his character in the Penguin series, but I wasn't really looking into his character being Crane as much as what I had first thought. But then, that Reddit user found those very Scarecrow-looking props in Dr. Julian Rush's office. You had, like, the scythe there, you had the other gauntlet with the needles, very Arkham Knight-looking Scarecrow injector needles. Maybe the other thing was a mask, who knows? The production designer said that they wanted to leave it open to interpretation, so that made me think, okay, so maybe they did change directions with regards to what my source originally saw. I don't know. But the fact remains that Lauren DeFrank is saying that he isn't Scarecrow. Maybe, if you want to hold on to a little ounce of hope there, it's like he's not the Scarecrow yet. But no, I think he isn't Scarecrow, and maybe there was something to what I heard a long time ago. Certainly the props made that more suspicious, but then why keep them in if there was nothing more to it? Like, that is, you know, no matter what, nothing on production is a mistake like that. So quite literally having Scarecrow props like that on set, and you could say to me, oh yeah, but they're not Scarecrow props. But I'm like, okay, so why on a Batman show, if you will, a Batman World show, would you put Scarecrow props, basically Scarecrow props, in the office of a doctor who works at Arkham in the show? Like, do you know what I mean? It's I feel like a story we'll never truly know necessarily the truth about. But I, again, am insistent about my source seeing what they did. And, you know, I guess this is where we're leaving that for the time being, or potentially forever. But that is where I'm going to leave this video, guys. I've been rambling far too much more than what I thought I was going to. The freaking DCU Batman stuff making me ramble too much again. But let me know your thoughts on absolutely everything. Obviously, we've got Creature Commandos coming out in the next couple of days. I'm going to be doing another DC Studios news roundup soon, because there's some other interesting things that I want to get to, but I felt like I had to ramble about Matt Reeves' Batman universe separately, I'm using that word, in this video. But give this video a like if you did enjoy it, especially if you're here right now. Why not? Come on, do it. And consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. But I'm going to love you and leave you. Again, appreciate your support. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see all of you people of the Batverse in the next video. Goodbye.